And I think, is there that famous quote that's attributed to Charles back in the day where he said to Diana or his mother or someone when they were calling him out on his affairs, and he famously said, "I'm not going to be the first Prince of Wales that doesn't have a mistress."
I don't remember that.
Oh, that is telling because...
Welcome to Sunday Lunch, Reality Served, where we discuss reality TV, pop culture, and what distracted us this week. Hello, Jessie.
Hello, Sophie.
Bit exciting?
Yes. How are you today?
I am so good, and I am so pumped for our special side dish episode.
That's right, everyone. We are bringing to you what we call our side dish episodes, which are little bonus episodes on items of interest that Sophie and I literally can't wait to talk about in the weekly podcast. So we hope you enjoy our side dishes. Before we tell you what today's side dish is about, Sophie, what do you have in your cup today?
I have something very, very special today. So for those that aren't watching the camera, I've got a beautiful cup of G&T with ice and a little lemon twist, which I Googled how to make. I've been walking around singing the song in my head all morning. I'd rather be royal, royal. But that is what I'm drinking. What's in your glass today, Jessie?
We'd all probably rather be royal. I too, in honour of being royal, have a gin and tonic with a lime. I'm not as fancy to have the twist. You did a beautiful twist. I'm very impressed with you.
Thank you. Yes, I did Google that. But well, here's cheers.
Cheers, darling. Cheers to a little G&T in the afternoon after lunch. Why not? I mean, I'm pretty sure that for the royals, Princess like Margaret used to have one at 11 a.m. That's just conjecture, though. Don't sue me.
Allegedly.
So what we're talking about today, you may have guessed, we've got Sophie in plaid, we've got me in brown, we're drinking some G&Ts. It's time for us to talk about the British royal family.
How we've waited this long, I do not know. This is a topic that we are equally passionate about and very, very opinionated about. So it's a great time to have a chat. But yeah, speaking of what we're wearing, I can see you're in a beautiful, what shade would you call that?
It's like brown, but I'm going to call it chestnut.
Oh, lovely. Your hair looks chestnut also.
Thank you.
Yeah, and very shiny. Very shiny. That's very royal as well.
Thank you. I try. Well, tell me about your beautiful plaid outfit. You look so classy.
Thank you. I love this dress. I wear this dress a fair bit. It's called the McRitchie, but I thought I would go with a little bit of plaid for Scotland. It's by Rick Rack Road, which is a Brisbane designer who I love and is a good friend of mine. But yes, it felt royal. I actually bought this to wear to the Edinburgh military tattoo, which had been on my bucket list for years, and I bought tickets for all four of us to go earlier this year, and then one of the girls ended up being really sick and we didn't go. So, but anyway, the dress still gets to go out.
Well, it's a gorgeous dress, and you're like Rick Rack Road just do such beautiful patterns, original patterns. So she's amazing. So shout out to her. Well, we decided we would catch up on the royals because similar to the housewives, Sophie and I are like privately and secretly always obsessing over the royals and watching, and none of our friends do. So once again, we somehow figured out that we're both interested in this, and we're like, it's a perfect side dish. On top of that, I have been reading this book, The Heir Apparent by Rebecca Armitage. This book is brilliant, and I'm going to tell you why just to kick us off, right? Now, we know that we're talking about real people in the royal family, so take all of our gossip and opinions with a lot of salt because all of our opinions will contradict each other anyway as we go through this discussion. We just get so excited because it's such a strange community being in the royal family, and we are obsessed with these closed and private communities. We've talked about that before. But this book is written by an ABC journalist in Australia. She lives in Hobart, and she was the royal reporter for the ABC for so many years. So
How do you get that job?
Chief gossip columnist for the royal family. I mean, and I'm sure she has like a million other journalistic achievements as well. So Rebecca, not asking you to gossip, but she then, like, her dream was to write a book, and so she wrote a book about a princess in the British royal family. And this book is chock full of little Easter eggs for people who are obsessed with royal gossip like us.
Oh, so based on your recommendation, I have also been listening to it. So I'm the audiobook girly. I am loving it because what it is, it takes a lot of real world elements that you can tell, like this certain character you might think like that's clearly based on Princess Diana or this, Prince Charles or King Charles. Then within that, it's a truly unique story. So at points I kind of wish it was real, which is terrible because then it's also terribly sad as well.
It's a tragic story, but also the royal family has always been full of tragedy. It really is such a gilded cage. Sophie, now to start off our discussion of the British monarchy, can I tell you a few facts about this family?
Absolutely. I would love that.
Now, they may not be the facts that you want to hear, but I think if as a legitimate discussion of the royal family, we have to be cognizant of their place in history. Okay, so here are some facts that I looked up that I want everyone to hear before we talk about the dresses and Kate and Meghan. Okay. As colonial rulers, we know that the royal family sat atop the British Imperial Empire. The royal family benefited from stealing gold, ivory, sugar, and tobacco, generating wealth specifically for the royal family. Also stolen jewels from other countries, such as the Kohinoor diamond from India. Number 2, the Royal African Company, created by and invested in by the royal family, starting in 1660, trafficked more than 3 million African people into slavery in America. I couldn't find a definitive fact on the amount of slavery in England when they finally abolished their slavery laws. But there is a great movie starring Ioan Gruffudd called Amazing Grace about the group of people that harassed Parliament in Britain long enough to get slavery overturned. And yes, I have interviewed Ioan Gruffudd and he's lovely.
Gosh. And so obviously I knew that the slaves into America came via ship. So what you're saying is that the company that was running those ships was owned by the British royalty?
Yes.
Okay. And were they also then bringing slaves into the UK at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did not know that.
Royal family. So, for example, like most of the aristocratic families have like slavery in their backgrounds. That's how they maintain those enormous castles. And like Benedict Cumberbatch knows that his family generations ago had involvement with slavery. Like it's quite unseemly. Anyway, I will go on. The British Empire killed 100 million Indian people in the 40 years between 1880 and 1920.
Just in India while they were colonizing it?
Yes, that's not that long ago either.
It is not that long ago.
And then we come to Australia, where King George III of the British royal family instructed James Cook to take Australia in 1780, which they did. And by 1788, they were issuing letters patent from the Crown claiming Australia as a British penal colony. As part of that, we know that there was a genocide committed of First Nations people in Tasmania, where I now live, in Lutruwita, and horrific massacres and murders of many First Nations people across Australia as a result of the Crown taking Australia as a penal colony. Finally, there are stolen artefacts that are valued up to $45 trillion that are in the British Museum. And Geoffrey Robertson QC, who is an Australian that works with Amal Clooney, he's a very famous barrister. I think he lives in the UK. He has said that the British Museum is the largest receiver in the world of stolen goods. So, when we talk about the British royal family, we can't pretend that it is all just dresses and money, because there is such inherent tragedy and blood through this family's lineage that I think it provides a lot of context for when we get to the more modern royals and the things that we saw with Meghan Markle. So yes, thank you for letting me kick that off with some sobering facts.
They're so sobering, Jessie, and it's, that's what makes this whole topic so complicated and nuanced, because, this is idea of, the royal family is the, the original reality TV and so fun and gossipy, but that began with that exchange with the tabloids, the quid pro quo, which is, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, so that we can really keep the dark underbelly hidden. And so, yeah, it does make it really, really complicated. It makes, just being an Australian is complicated. Being a non-Indigenous person living in Australia, it's complicated. And that's just a tiny snippet of the impact that the British had on the world. yeah, so I think that is really important to share those facts at the start, because I know that my personal fascination with the royals is so surface and silly, but it is incredibly important to acknowledge all of that up front.
So true. And my fascination with them truly is because it will be similar to yours. We'll get into the timeline of it all. I think we all watched Kate Middleton and we felt ourselves in her. And it seemed, I mean, we were younger when Princess Di died, but we can get all into this. And so we'd sort of forgotten the difficulties and the tragedy, and we didn't understand the relationship between the royal family and the tabloids. Like, that was all over our heads. I just thought, here's this beautiful girl going to uni. She's going to meet the love of her life, who just happens to be Prince William. And oh my God, I can't wait to watch all of this. Like, that's how I simply came to the royal family. But as we know, there's just so much lore. So there's been some royal activity last week, this week. Sophie, do you want to kick us off with the latest?
I will. And I think that's what got us chatting and deciding that we absolutely needed to film this side dish now, because it was all sort of rearing up again. And so actually, I would just say, so I also didn't get it. So my sister was a Princess Diana person, you know, and was obsessed with her and, you know, has all of the sapphire jewels and, you know, everything. And so I didn't quite get it, but I do remember where I was the day that they said Princess Diana has passed. And there's only 2 events like that in my life that I can remember. And it was Princess Diana and Steve Irwin, where I can remember where I was the day I was told they passed, which is, can you remember those days?
I remember Princess Di because, like you, I wasn't that cognizant of her. I thought she was a really pretty lady that did nice things in other countries, right? She's really pretty, and I was really sad they split up, and I didn't understand because she was so pretty how anyone could break up with her. Like, I was like 8 or 9 at that time.
So simple, yeah.
So simple. And then I think I was 12 or 13. I remember a girl from my school rang me on the phone and she was crying. She said, Princess Diana's died. And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, there's been a car accident. And I was like, Mom. Mum came to the top of the stairs and I was like, Bridget says that Princess Diana's died in a car accident. And Mum's like, oh no, that can't be right. And I'm like, turn on the TV. And it was true. The only other 2 people for me, yes, Steve Owen was one of them and Heath Ledger was the other. That was awful when that happened.
I thought you were going to say Tupac. Yeah, no, because if there was 3 for me, it
would have been Tupac. Sure.
But yeah, so I feel like, and I did, yeah, same. I was a bit young. I did not quite get any of it. I didn't have the Wills and Harry posters on my bedroom growing up. I just really wasn't. And so I would say that Kate was definitely my gateway drug into the royals. And it just sort of grew and grew. And so what we've had happen this week was, you know, as we know, it's almost sort of jumping to the end of the story, but there's quite a divide in the royal family with the King Charles, and he's obviously got his 2 sons, William and Harry being disconnected from the family, having moved to the States with his wife and children, and seeing that sort of chasm forming in the family has been really awful. I think for any of those families that go non-contact, you always hope that they can get it together. So the news sort of this week was that Harry had in fact gone to England, he'd taken Meghan, and he and the 2 children caught up with the King and Camilla. Yeah. And they were like, why is Camilla there? The fun little piece of goss was really that they had a Chanel show happening at Claret's house. And so the vehicles coming in and out, it was quite clever. People thought it was just for the Chanel show, but actually that's sort of how Harry and Meghan got in. It was a private event. It was interesting, though, it was leaked by the palace, not by Harry's side that it had happened, but it was said to be private.
Camilla leaked it. Camilla leaks.
Camilla leaks. And so that was all a bit of intrigue this week. At the same time of that meeting happening, you had Wills playing a game of polo, Kate being there, apparently a bit of, you know, affection that you don't normally see between the 2 of them, to make it very clear that A, they weren't at the meeting, and B, you know, that they're happier than ever.
And again, at the polo, there was the Yes, there was a slight PDA, which they're not particularly known for. They sort of stepped it up after Harry and Meghan came on the scene a little bit. And them stepping it up is not like Harry and Meghan, who just seem to be blessed with the most incredible looks of love and photo opportunities that, just seem to happen around them because there's just love radiating off them all. But Kate and Wills will be like, oh yes, we're going to do a public peck on the cheek. Wonderful, marvelous, jolly good. And they did do that. However, there was also a very similar moment to when I think the last time we saw her at Polo years ago, where he accepts the trophy and then he just walks off and she's left standing there looking after him, looking sad. And that happened again last week. And I was just like, what? This is the moment you're meant to avoid. But look, should we start with Kate and Wills and work our way up?
Okay, we have to start with Kate and Wills because I think for us, like we say, she was our entry point. And I thought there was a really interesting line. So in The Heir Apparent, there is a character, Isla, who I would perceive to be the Princess Diana character. And in the book, it says, while women all over the world had a parasocial relationship with Isla, like Diana, none more than those that had their babies at the same time as her. And that for me was the big aha, because it wasn't just about having babies at the same time as Kate and Wills. For me, my own love story matched up. I think at some point I thought we were them in a way. And so if you go back to sort of Kate and Wills, they were engaged in 2010. I was engaged in 2010. They were married in 2011. We were married in 2011. They had their first child in 2013. We had our first child in 2013. They had their second child in 2015. We had our second child in 2015. I'm telling you, it was lining up. Okay, they had their third baby 2018. We had dropped out of the game by then.
They bested you right at the end.
And so, exactly, they bested us, or did they? And so as we were prepping for this episode, and I was just trying to remember, gosh, I really was really quite obsessed with them. And then I remembered that I had my mum invite them to our wedding.
Oh my God.
I was thinking about it. I was like, why did I do that? So there was a couple of reasons why we did that. So one is that, in my full royal frenzy, we got married in a castle. So we were living in Canada. We got married in a castle, but the actual castle that we were married in, the Queen had been to, and there was an escape plan in World War II where if she were to leave England, this is where she was going to stay. So there was a heavy family importance to the castle. And then they were actually going to be in Canada on our wedding day, and they were. So it wasn't totally random, because I was trying to look back, I'm like, why did we do this? And so, but there had been some bushfires and they ended up going to Calgary where we actually lived, and they didn't come over to Vancouver Island. But I was like, if you're going to be in Canada, we were married the day after Canada Day, we're going to, you be in a castle. Anyway, I made my mum invite them so that I had plausible deniability.
But how did she invite them? How does that work? What did she do?
I actually need to check with her. I think she sent them an invitation, but maybe I want to know, did she write them a letter and say why the castle? And I actually don't know. I can't remember. I do need to check with her. But I mean, we went to another level of crazy, because then I thought about it, and we stayed at Matakauri in New Zealand, which is where they stayed when they went to Matakauri. We stayed at Longitude, which is those glamping cabins at Uluru that they stayed in Australia. I rang and made sure we stayed in the same cabin as glamping tent as they stayed. So I'm like, I think I really got into a frenzy. But Jessie, this is the most exciting part.
Sorry,
they wrote back.
I know they wrote back, but I just have to say, I did not know you were this into them. That is amazing. And I know that in your mind, you're like, if we could just meet, the four of us would all be best friends. So I get that. And that's all you were trying to engineer, but that is amazing. Okay. So
I think I get I get a hyperfixation. And I was like, and also I'm like, wow, if they stay there, it's got to be nice.
Yeah. You'd hope so.
Who even am I? So then as we were prepping, I was like, they did write back. Let me go through. And I went out and pulled out our wedding box. We have a letter here. And I want to read it to you because it is better than I could have imagined. Because obviously we got married 15 years ago. I have not thought about this in a very long time. I have moved on from my obsession. But this letter, it is sent from Buckingham Palace. It was still during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, so can I read this letter to you?
My God, please. Oh, I'm just imagining Kate saying, William, darling, yes, we must reply to that very kind invitation from that very nice lady at the castle at Vancouver Island. Please, can you write something down? All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, this was during her commoner days because she was not yet married. And also, I was just thinking, like, if you apply for a job these days, sometimes you don't even get a response, you know?
Right.
And I was like, we are just these randoms. Like, the fact that they responded. So the letter comes from St. James's Palace and it was prior to their wedding. So it was just the W crown logo. But interesting, and this actually made me really sad when I read it. It's from the office of HRH Prince William of Wales and HRH Prince Henry of Wales. Do you remember when they had a joined office? And so I think they even had a joined Instagram account.
Yeah. And Henry's Harry, which is so cute.
I know. So private and confidential it was in March of 2011. Dear Mr. Hanson and Ms. Galani. So this is us prior to our wedding and then prior to their wedding. Prince William and Miss Catherine Middleton, so she was still Miss Catherine Middleton, have asked me to thank you for your recent invitation to your wedding in July. Anyway, it gets better. The Prince and Miss Middleton were extremely grateful for your kind invitation. Having given careful consideration to the possibilities, they were considering it. They were trying to figure out how they could make it work. I mean, they were going to be in Canada. Having given careful consideration to the possibilities, however, I very much regret that Prince William and Miss Middleton reluctantly feel they have to decline. His Royal Highness and Miss Middleton send you their best wishes. And very much regret having to send you this necessarily disappointing reply. Yours sincerely, Miss Claudia Holloway. And then, and then just our names at the bottom.
Hey, Claudia, that was super sweet. Can I tell you something? That letter is almost word for word the type of email response you get when you pitch your book out to a publishing company and they deeply, deeply regret after much careful consideration of the possibilities. We must decline your manuscript at this moment, but we wish you all the best. And we just know some other publishing company will snap it up even though we think it's shit. It is so similar, the careful consideration. And it's so kind, though, because, like...
It is. I mean, I've worked in HR. I mean, there are people who have put more effort into things that get, much less in response. And if I think about it, if Mum just popped an invite, so I have to figure out if Mum did write a letter. But, they really they tried to be there, Jessie. They tried. And unfortunately, after much consideration into playing with their calendar, they couldn't be there.
Look, they were obviously intending to come. It was clearly an invitation they were interested in. They're like, we like free meals at castles. Sean looks nice. Sophia's really beautiful. Why not? We're going to be in Canada anyway. But look, obviously some aide had booked their calendar up, not by their choice, but they had other pressing engagements that they simply couldn't get out of.
Exactly. So I didn't hold it against them. Obviously, subsequently to that, that's when we, travelled around and stayed where they stayed. And so, they're engaged. She gets Diana's ring. Then they have the wedding. I took the day off work for their wedding. Did you? I was going to say, did you? But in Canada, it was during the day. So I just early morning. So I remember waking up very, very early, making a pot of tea. I might have baked some scones, but I had taken the whole day off work so that I could, enjoy it. Did you watch the wedding?
I feel like, was it on early on a Friday morning or a Saturday morning? I don't feel like I had to take the day off work. Maybe I was working from home that day because I am a working from home bandit from way back. I did not need COVID to let me work from home. I was just like, I'll work from home today. See you later. And I remember watching it and thinking, her dress was beautiful. Can I talk to you about the ring and William proposing using the sapphire engagement ring? My initial response to that was, because I watched their engagement interview and I thought Kate seemed just really sweet and nervous and shy, but she looked beautiful. And I remember thinking, oh my God, he loves her so much. He must really be in love with her to give her Diana's engagement ring. Is that what you felt?
Yes, absolutely. That is what I felt. And I mean, I know that the ring was originally Harry's, and when Wills was younger, he actually wanted the watch, and that's what they both selected. And then he'd gone to Harry and said, actually, and because they had been so close, the three of them, and he's like, actually, I want to give it to Kate. Would that be okay? And Will and Harry did. It absolutely felt like he really loved her. And I know this is like super weird, but during those engagement photos, you know how she does that thick, lustrous, like hair, it was so shiny. The only thing I've always been able to think is like she's like a thoroughbred horse, like really expensive horse with a shiny coat. And you read all those old royal books about the fights and the wars, and I was like, she's fabulous genetics, she's all of these things, and I was like, they've got to keep their line strong, should they need to fight for their anyway, I could see the irony of what I was saying, like in the sense that I was like, this is all just ridiculous, but at the same time I was like, he's got himself a thoroughbred, even if she's not royal adjacent.
Well, to me, it seemed better that she wasn't, because number one, as you say, it would strengthen their bloodline. Can't believe we're even having that discussion. It feels very icky.
It is icky.
It is icky. But at the end of the day, the royals need to widen that circle, probably aristocrats in general. It's too small. So I remember thinking she's great, like from that level. She's tall. She's like a beautiful clothes horse. She's got the beautiful chestnut hair like a beautiful horse. I completely agree. She also had almost zero personality. So you could kind of imprint yourself on her. And
I just make her what you wanted her to be.
Yes. And I just remember thinking she must be the luckiest girl in the world to just go to university and fall in love with Prince, and then like he's going to marry her. But of course, as we know now, it's not that simple, because in fact she changed universities and she took gap years and she was trying to line up her university experience with William's. And put herself kind of in his orbit. I think what to
her
me,
or her mother, because again, I think it's covered quite well in the heir apparent, right?
That surprised me. So yes, in the heir apparent there is talk of that, and like you hear it all through the tabloids that her mother and her were doing this. But I sort of think to myself, like, so what? Like, surely there were like a million other people doing the same thing.
Oh, of course.
It doesn't. Like, how you can't force someone to fall in love with you. So I was like, even if she did do all these things to try and be in his year, like it's still up to him if he liked her or not. So I've never really understood why it feels misogynistic to me to be like, oh, but she stalked him and she did all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, he chose her.
Yeah, that's right. And she was dating somebody else when they first met. So it's not even as though she was, waiting around and pining for him, which is probably one of the things that he probably appreciated. And just thinking about the heir apparent, actually, in that there is a wedding and then there's these two sort of female cousins, which and the uncle. So it's really who you might think would be Prince Andrew and Beatrice and Eugenie. But it's so funny because in the book they talk about how they wore the most hideous fascinators to the wedding. And I actually loved it. So at the time, I think I even posted on my Instagram, I can't remember which one of them wore it. It was like a fascinator that was like these circles on top. And she was wearing pink, and then the other one was wearing blue. And all these memes came out showing them as the ugly stepsisters from Cinderella. But I was like, I must have the worst taste, because the whole world was laughing at them. And I had actually just thought, I love that.
Listen, it was like the first royal wedding in how long? And it was meant to be true love. Of course you're going to go fashion forward. It was Beatrice in the pink twisty thing.
Yes,
and
I loved it.
And Eugenie was in blue. Eugenie was very young at the time as well. Like, I mean, I always felt that those girls were bullied because they were overweight. It was literally...
Of course. That's what it was.
Fergie. Yeah, all over again. And I don't even know if they were overweight, but they just weren't...
No, they weren't wraiths though.
Yes.
And so anyone that wasn't this, size 0 was going to be a problem.
I thought that was so cruel. And but at this point with Kate and William, I was all in on them. I was like, this is beautiful. Like, they broke up at one point, and then I was like, oh my God, he wanted her back. Like, they must really love each other. And I just don't think I was seeing like William was so protected during those years. Like, we all knew, like, Harry was a party boy or whatever. But now you look back and you're like, well, William was doing all of those things and worse, but we just never knew about it, right?
Absolutely. And at the beginning of their marriage, they got all that private time. They went off to Anglesey or whatever it was and got to live in the, like, they were offered so much. And I think this is where we get, I guess, we now see a different version of that wasn't then offered to the next big it couple. And so when you say, you were so into them still at this stage, same. And I think I continued to be interested in them. I would say I faded, somewhat as I grew up a little and got my own life, but I still I didn't have an issue. At what point do you feel? Sorry, go.
No, ask me your question, because
I was just going to say, at what point do you feel though it shifted for you?
Definitely, it shifted. So they got married in 2011. They were like, we're going to take time to settle Kate into her role and settle William into all this, because when we're Prince and Princess of Wales and all of that, we're not going to have a life. And I just accepted that blindly at the time. And then I think about 5 years later, I was like, they're really not doing anything at all. And I was like, maybe they're a bit lazy. And then all those things come back to where, like, the Queen had said to William, Kate's just a professional girlfriend, tell her to go and get a job. So she, like, this was before they were married, she ended up being a part-time accessories buyer at Jigsaw, and workers have come out since to say she was lovely, but she would get a text or a call from William, she'd just disappear. That was it. Like, she was still a royal girlfriend just with this pretend job. And seeing them, like, married and all of that. And I was like, I thought she would want to be doing, I guess you and I had the Meghan idea of, oh my goodness, this is an incredible platform. You're part of this historic family. There are incredible things you could be doing, but she just wasn't doing them. And he wasn't doing them.
No, he wasn't.
And I thought he was a different type of person. And so this is when you start to realize. And then Harry finds Meghan, and then it comes out in 2016 that they were dating. And I remember having the same response that you did to William and Kate, because I was like, I met the love of my life in 2016. And we fell in love really deeply in 2016. And you could tell that, like, Harry and Meghan looked at each other as soulmates, and so did Charlie and I. And so then we actually got married and engaged more quickly than them, because we didn't have the royal, processes to deal with. So we got married in 2017 when they got engaged. And then I sat down and watched their wedding in 2018, and I was glued to the screen for that. And I could relate to them. I felt like, because she was mixed race, I'm mixed race, you're mixed race. Charlie's like the third born in his family, and he's like never pushed himself forward, and Harry's always just been the third wheel, and Charlie was like always the third or fourth wheel. And I was like, they just seem so similar, and Charlie's got a little bit of ginger in his beard, so I really sort of then imprinted on them. And Meghan seemed like the kind of woman that I wanted Kate to be, which is smart, opinionated, had worked in charitable endeavors, had been an independent, financially successful woman, and wanted to do great things. So at that point, I'm looking at Meghan and I'm looking at Kate, and I'm like, oh, I'm really excited for Meghan and Harry now, and I'm excited for the awesome foursome to come together.
Me too. And I think, when you said earlier is that Kate's just bland enough for you to sort of put your thoughts upon her. And I thought during that time, just because I can't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. She might really be in, behind, the walls as a commoner, creating change and, thinking about her causes and all of those things, and just assuming. And it wasn't until Meghan came along and you immediately, straight out of the gate, saw that she had ideas that she wanted to use this platform for, and she got after it. And then similar to you, I thought, oh, I cannot wait for this, awesome foursome, the Fab Four. I just was so excited what the four of them would be able to achieve together.
I thought it was going to herald in a new, and I shouldn't have thought this, right? So this goes back to why I shared those really sobering facts at the beginning, is that we were all too happy to treat this like our favorite reality show, all too happy to see these beautiful, handsome men and beautiful women, and with all of this money, and we just think, oh my goodness, I'm assuming they're good. They seem good. They're going to do such good things. And I still remember, like, there was that event, and I know we'll talk about the lip balm, but it was the same event where they were all sitting on a stage, and Kate, bless her, she was pregnant, so she probably wasn't feeling her best. But I remember the journalist said to William and Harry, do you all get along, or are there fights in the family firm, you know? And William and Harry just laughed in a way that was like, you have no idea. And I remember thinking, no. And I think they said there's always, you know, massive disagreements. We all have our own opinions. And I was like, oh no, why are they telling us that? I remember thinking it was so open of them to admit it.
And I think it was not long after that they split offices. Mm-hmm. And so originally the four of them had sort of worked out of the same office, which I think was the same one I got that letter from. And then they split apart. And I mean, interesting. This little flashback of what she was experiencing. So even in the Ladies of London, did you see the lady that was an actual royal? What was her name that ran Emma? Lady Emma. She even threw shade at Meghan me either. So, you know how she said, like, I'm the first actual, you know, biracial in the royal family. Okay, great. Like, if that's amazing. But instead of being an ally to Meghan through her interviews, it was so deeply shady. And I just thought, even watching that, I was like, from the very beginning, she must have been getting these barbs and we just weren't aware of it yet.
Can you imagine the snobbery she would have been exposed to? Because imagine and also, Emma, yes, you were the first biracial woman in upper British aristocracy, but you're not royal.
No, you're not in the actual inner circle.
Family. And I feel like they take a lot of what Meghan says out of context. As Meghan's like, I was the first biracial woman married into the royal family. Is that not true? That is still true.
It's true.
And also, like you said, Emma, that should have been something like, oh my goodness, I can help her navigate this, because I'm sure Emma's copped her fair share of racially charged barbs and little passive-aggressive comments. But you can just imagine what Meghan would have been, and how much she would have had to let roll off her back to kind of pick her battles on what the things were that she was going to push back on.
And so, yes, every opportunity that you think, or I thought, that Meghan would have had an ally coming into that. And that's, I mean, the lip balm of it all. Because when, you know, Harry met Meghan I thought was, at that time, I didn't know anything about her. I went and watched the whole Suits series because of that. And then, you know, we actually really enjoyed that series. And I thought, you know, finally, Kate's got her partner in crime. You know, the tabloids have been terrible to her. She had those sort of naked photos of her taken on her honeymoon and all these sort of horrible things that had occurred to her. And I thought, you know, her and even her sister, they're going to sort of wrap their arms around Meghan. They're going to bring her in. And it was, at that particular event that apparently Meghan asked Kate if she could borrow her lip balm. Kate thought that was like the most disgusting thing. Like, you wouldn't share lip balm. Like, who wouldn't? Like, with your new sister.
Yeah, who wouldn't? I'd be like, here's my lip balm, here's my lipstick. What else do you need?
Like, what? Can I help you? Yeah, exactly. And so she thought that was sort of foul. And then to start getting those sort of understanding that Kate had not welcomed her in with open arms, and that Kate had in fact been frosty. And I just imagine that, you know, they'd be all formal out and about, and then they'd get home and kick off their shoes and sit on the couch and have a proper chat. And, you know, what can I do? And these are the mistakes I made, and how, you know, and then to begin to see that actually that wasn't happening, and that there was truly ego involved, and they didn't want to be one-upped as the favourite couple, and that, you know, all of those sorts of things. It was very sad.
And it goes back to, you know, Charles and Diana, because after their Australian tour, that's when Charles realised everyone loved Diana, not him. And he got very angry. And similarly, when Harry and Meghan did their Aussie tour and announced their pregnancy, same thing. William and Kate were like, no. Kind of like what you say with the reality programs, there's a pecking order. And Kate and William were like, and we are above you. And we don't care that it's a modern monarchy. We don't care that the people see us as, like, we all see them as equal, because we don't give a shit about the order of succession. We're like, they're all just beautiful people in their castle. Like, we want to see them all doing stuff. But they're like, no, there's an order to how to do things. And this has been to Kate and Will's detriment, their entire relationship, in my opinion. Kate absolutely could have extended her hand to Meghan. They could have been so powerful together. Instead, we're getting a really icky feeling from Kate refusing to share lip balm with someone who's in her family. Why? Is it because she had the gall to ask a higher up for something, or is there another underlying reason.
Would you share it with your sister, Kate? Like, that's weird. Of course you would.
It's weird. I always loved when Meghan came out and said that when she first met Wills and Kate, she was so excited and she thought that, yeah, it was going to be very informal. They were at Knockcott, like in their crappy little unit. She was barefoot in her jeans and they were coming around for dinner. They were cooking. And Kate came and William, all very dressed up, like very formal. I didn't want the hugs, didn't relax. Like you can imagine Kate obviously being like, well, I'm going to see this beautiful actress. I better like zhuzh myself. I think that's quite natural. We would all do that. But wouldn't you be warm to them?
Wouldn't you then have a wine and say, you know, how are you finding it? How is it going? And I'm looking for an ally in you. And I think this is probably, whether it's a learned behavior in that family for Kate or whether it was similar in her own family, it is regardless, you keep the mask up. And, you know, another thing that they keep referring to in this book is how obsessed the royals are with watching their approval ratings and they're constantly watching them. And I guess it's this idea that it's either or. And it's like, wouldn't you rather be sort of one part of a much larger pie, which is a very approved of family, you know, this great foursome doing fabulous things? Or would you rather be the favorite of a much smaller pie, which is, you know, a family that's not doing it? And it's like they weren't thinking in that way. They were only ever taught either or, you or me. And it's this, I can't believe they're intelligent people. It's like, couldn't you see that working together and would have been for the best of all of you? But it's no, like it's so in this competitiveness is so deeply ingrained in them and they can only see it as winning and losing, you or me.
And honestly, we could sit down and have this conversation with William and Kate and be like, everyone would love you more if you teamed up with them. Everyone would love you more if we saw all of you out doing things. Everyone would love this whole family if you could do that. But they would be like, oh, no, they wouldn't. No, you don't understand the British tabloids. You don't understand the British people. No, they wouldn't. And we have to make sure that they love us because we are the monarchy and it doesn't matter about the rest of them. They're so out of touch with what people actually care about. And I think they're so terrified that the British people will say, we don't need you anymore, that they keep themselves in a gilded cage as well. You could absolutely change the way you do things. My goodness.
Yeah, they could influence the public because in a way they are right. They're pandering to what exists, which is basically, you know, as it's turned out, as the discourse changed around Meghan and Harry and they, you know, they were very, very popular and then they started to become unpopular. You know, if you read the comment sections, if someone says something good about Meghan, people will then, you know, get in the comments and say, no, Kate's better, and vice versa. And it became a either or within the comments as well. And it's like, no. Like, you don't have to choose a side. And if you like Kate, it doesn't mean you have to be cruel to Meghan and vice versa. And so I guess the Wills and Kate, like they were just feeding into that rather than really trying to get ahead of it and saying, you know, you can love us both despite us being different.
Change that narrative and let Kate say something for bloody once. She's said maybe two things the entire time we've known her, which was the engagement interview and then the cancer announcement, essentially, which I have, you know, very sad thoughts on that as well, because I don't know why William didn't sit with her. But it just honestly could have been so different. And I think they're forgetting too that the people who love this type of royal family are all going to, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but you are all going to pass away. They are older people. And don't you want to bring the younger generations with you? And the younger generation actually cares that you get out there and make a difference, especially given how goddamn privileged you are. They are the most privileged people on the planet. And I think I was always disappointed that William saw what Kate went through with the tabloids and then they unleashed so much worse on Meghan to bring down her popularity to the point where her life was under threat. It was clear racism. It was horrific vilification based on her nationality, her skin color, her ethnic heritage. It was just awful to the point where she had passive suicidal ideation feelings and no one cared.
Like no, it was that sad comment that she said, which is, you know, that they would, you know, tell fibs or whatever to the press to protect others, but they wouldn't even tell the truth to protect me. And, yes, you know, that was all that she wanted was the truth to be shared.
Yeah.
But it was, and I guess at the time she was going through all of her deepest, darkest, and they were saying, she made Kate cry and she did all of these things and we were only getting one side of the story. It was at the same time as the Wills cheating rumours, the Rose Hambury of it all was coming out. And so they just saw an opportunity that was too good, which is let's leak on Meghan and let's keep Wills, Rose and pegging off the front cover.
So let's talk about Rose Hambury.
Okay, let's talk about Rose.
She is the was it the Marquess of Chumley? She's married to the Marquis of Chumley. I don't know how to say Marquis.
I can't say it either.
No. So now she was a hot little piece of toddy that was going around the aristocratic circles with her sister, absolutely gorgeous girl. And by 25, which you'll agree is incredibly young, she was married to this guy, Chumley,
He's
who was
much older, right?
20 years or something older. And she was pregnant with twins, which is also interesting because he's apparently not into women and it's a lavender marriage or an agreement.
I did not know that.
This all alleged, obviously.
Yes, alleged, of course.
And so, but they seem to get along. Like whether they're married and they're in love or whether they've got an arrangement, it all seems to work beautifully for them. So good for them. But then, yes, there was starting to be these circles that were saying that Rose and William were getting very close.
And they were neighbours, right? So they were out at that cottage or that whatever their house was that they have in the country. They were the neighbouring parcel of land. And they were spending a lot of social time together. And there is photos of them, of Kate, Wills, Rose at events together. I think they were a part of a very tight circle together.
I mean, both women absolutely beautiful
they
too.
Look the same.
Not dissimilar, exactly.
Yes.
Also not dissimilar to Jekka Craig, who is one of William's closest friends, still is, I think, an early crush for him. I think he likes these tall brunette women, which I'm like, that's great. Like, good for you. Like, you clearly have good taste in choosing women. Like, they're all gorgeous, strong-looking women. But do we believe it? Because there's been so many injunctions. Like, I think William took out an injunction to stop reporters reporting on it.
Oh, I didn't even know that you could retrospectively change articles, and that's what it is, right? So luckily but there's still some, records of the original articles that were put out by some of the media that then have been changed to remove references to her, to remove references to, names of people who've given commentary on it. But, I kind of, even though it is, just a rumor and we'll never truly know, I did buy into it because it's just so ingrained into the royal way, which is that, once a woman becomes pregnant, she goes into her confinement. The king he cannot withhold from his natural virile needs, and they would always go off and have their mistresses or concubines. And it's like, well, if Rose has been in, she's had her baby, she's done. We know that Kate went through 3 horrific pregnancies with her HG. And so is it out of the realm of possibility with William, who, I've liked less and less over the years I think I used to give him the, wow, he looks like Diana. And therefore, I think he's got a big heart and he's quite charitable. But it seems to me that he's probably got more of a personality, more aligned with his dad, which is really, again, Diana did not fit into that family at all. I think that's why we loved her. I think Charles is a product of his situation, his upbringing, etc. And I think that William is too. So to think that, while Kate's unable to do her wifely duties over what was probably like a 6 or 7 year period, is it out of the realm of possibility that he would turn to his neighbour, this beautiful woman? No, I don't think it is.
It's not. Look, I know. And I think, is there that famous quote that's attributed to Charles back in the day where he said to Diana or his mother or someone when they were calling him out on his affairs, and he famously said, "I'm not going to be the first Prince of Wales that doesn't have a mistress."
I don't remember that.
Oh, that is telling, because now it comes from it changes really from a personal choice to an expectation that perhaps all of these men, as you say, were raised with. And I think we all wanted William, who was blonde with this beautiful hair and this shy smile, to be Diana incarnate. He would never cheat on Kate. He would never hurt her. But then as he grew up and we saw photos of him out at ski resorts, grabbing on ladies, grinding on ladies while Kate was home pregnant. We see occasional film and video of him like hurrying her up when she's talking to people and carrying out her freaking duties, and he's like, hurried up, and it's so disrespectful.
Yeah, swatting her away. He's just
swatting her away, and it's shitty. And I'm like, I just would love to crack her emotionally and open her up and be like, did you ever think he would cheat on you? Did you agree to this wedding knowing that he would probably have mistresses? Did you think that you could cope because of the results of what you believed you would get? Or did you genuinely believe, like all of us, that he was deeply in love with you and he would protect you? Like, I want to know what
I do too, because I think we attributed so much of what we thought at the start. But then, if you think about her family, right, they're obviously social climbers in a sense, right? They were new money, but they'd set their children up to be in these circles. So I feel as though if her mum has always told her, like, you are like a piece of property that we will put out into the world and we want you to do good things for us and we want you to catch the king, I imagine her advice from her mum will be things like, keep calm and carry on. You don't, you turn the blind eye. This is what it takes to be you. I mean, if you even look at her sister, right? So her sister is married to, did you watch Made in Chelsea?
Yeah, she's married to Spencer's older brother.
She's married to Spencer's brother, right? And that guy is like a billionaire. Like he's so rich, right? And he obviously wanted to be royal adjacent. I think that's even why he was with Pippa, because they were together and then broke up. The business opportunities that it brings him, these two sisters were sort of put into this world and said, like, what's the best you can get? And so who I thought Kate was Meghan, and I think it's not who she is. And I think Meghan is Meghan, and that's not what they wanted in a royal wife.
That's right. You're right. Because what we thought Kate would be is actually what Meghan is. And I think we ignored all the signs that showed us that actually she's nothing like that. And as you say, that's also not what the royal family wants at all. I mean, I was always like, oh my God, it's amazing. He's chosen his college girlfriend. He didn't mess around too much. He loves her. She's got a degree. She's interested in art. She's going to do wonderful things for the arts or whatever. And yet, none of that is important to them. Her parents obviously did not encourage her to be a strong, independent, financially capable woman, which breaks my heart that the best they thought their daughters would do would be through marriage rather than through their own efforts and careers. They're like, no, just marry well, which is so fucked. And then, it brings us to Meghan actually saying, and Harry saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. I always remember this because in 2020, this is another reason why I think I've imprinted a bit on Harry and Meghan, right? I'm also a little bit imprinted on Amal Clooney, the Lebanese barrister that's married to George Clooney, because I think she's an amazing barrister. She also, Link, works with Jeffrey Robertson QC, who I discussed at the top of this episode. Now, around the time that Harry and Meghan in early 2020 declared that they were leaving the royal family, Amal Clooney had also resigned from the project team to return the Elgin marbles, these Greek beautiful artifacts that were stolen that are in the British Museum, I believe. They were trying to launch legal action to get those returned to Greece. And Amal had been like, it's not going to work. They're not going to do it. I'm stepping away. At the same time, Meghan and Harry were like, it's not going to work. We're not going to do it. We're stepping away. And I remember I'd been really sick the year before. And I'd been pushing myself to try to continue working. And I just remember reading those articles and I was like, oh, it's okay to walk away if circumstances won't change. And I know that sounds ridiculous. These are all things we should know. But I remember thinking, that's Amal Clooney who has everything at her disposal. That's Meghan and Harry that have everything at their disposal. And they've still drawn a line in the sand and said, we're not proceeding anymore. And I remember feeling so proud of them for leaving.
Absolutely, me too. And it's like, you have choice, you have autonomy. And I feel as though people are still punishing them for that choice. They've come out afterwards and shared more about sort of the turmoil. I remember when they did up their Frogmore cottage and all the stories, put a yoga studio in with floating floorboards and you read it, they did nothing, but she paid with her own money. And they, and when they took Frogmore cottage back, they did not reimburse her or any of the things that they've walked away from. But again, they left for their own mental well-being. If William, who is so disparaging of Meghan, and will eventually be the sovereign who will be in charge of their finances, I would leave too. I would not, if I was Meghan, there is no chance that that independent woman wants Prince William to be in charge of her. You know that he would be putting constraints and doing all sorts of things. And then if maybe she had an ally in Kate, maybe, but she didn't have that. And so when they did leave, again, I thought it was incredible, but people are still punishing them for it. And they're saying, oh, you left because you wanted a private life and now, you're doing these public things. And no, they didn't. They wanted to be able to make an income. What they wanted to be able to do was have some level of autonomy outside of the, what do they call it, like the company. All they were looking for was, so we would like to continue to do our duties. We want to have our commitments, have our charities, do all of these things, but we also want to have a level of autonomy, which means we need to be able to make our own income. And they weren't able to do that, so they left. But yet people, again, are continuing to spread falsehoods about what they said and the reasons that they left, to continue to say horrible things about them, like to this day. And it is so deeply frustrating to me.
It's frustrating to me too, because every time I hear someone say they wanted a private life, I'm like, never did they ever say that.
They did not say that.
They never said
okay,
it.
she didn't want to come out of the hospital one day, in a dress and hold her baby with blood running down her legs. Like, that's not asking for privacy. That's just asking for human decency.
Exactly. And she did end up coming out at some point anyway. They're not entitled to see the spares child on the door of the hospital. Fuck that. And as you say, imagine having your brother-in-law or sister-in-law, it doesn't even, if William was Queen Elizabeth, who wants their entire financial future controlled by your in-laws? That is terrifying to me. And of course,
does not like you.
Yeah, that has made it clear that, not only do they not like you, but they're willing to put you in actual danger. I remember, they were removing their security. They were playing silly buggers with the titles that would go to the children. They were talking about skin colour. And actually, when Spare was released in, was it the Netherlands? You know about this, right? You haven't mentioned it, so I'm curious to see if you do, that when this book came out, it actually named the person who had asked how dark the skin colour of their children would be. And
yes,
I'm not going to.
So the original version, it came out in the Dutch first for some reason, right? It was before we even got a copy of the English. Is that right?
I don't know the timeline of it. I just remember it being reported and I was like, oh no, the publishing house, some poor intern is going to get fired for sending that out. But it named the person. And actually, I had always thought it was Charles, but turns out it wasn't. It was someone else who, may have some issues in that regard, and it was damaging. And I just remember thinking how hurtful that would be as a woman of colour to find that out and to know that, and you're already married and you're already giving birth. It just, to have such a lack of support and have it be so racially motivated within the palace as well as outside the palace. I always think, my dad would say to me, I've worked on so many project teams over the years, and the hardest jobs were where the people in the businesses you were trying to change resented you, and then within the project team, everyone was white-anting each other. And I remember I was on one of these projects, I came home and I was like, I'm so tired. I just feel so emotional. I don't know what to do. And Dad said, well, because I was saying, what am I doing wrong? There must be something I can fix. It must be me. And he's like, no, you actually can't fight a battle inside as well as outside. He's like, so if you're in a team where everyone's backing each other up, you can take those arrows and those bullets from outside because you've got each other. But if you don't have that tight, he said, it's pointless. You might as well leave because it's not going to work. And he was so right. And I can only imagine that Harry and Meghan were taking bullets inside and outside. How can you expect them to stay?
Exactly. And it's this determination to misunderstand them. And it's there's this and by the way, great advice from your dad, Uncle Pete. What a legend. Exactly. It's you can't fight a battle on two fronts, right? And so you're surrounded. And I think that is how they felt. And so there is a royal commentator, her page is matter of fact. Her name is Amanda. And she, in fact, has always provided royal commentary, just factual. And when she would report, she always reported on Kate. I think that's originally how I found her, Kate and, Wills, then reported on Meghan and Harry, but wouldn't buy into the misinformation about Meghan and Harry. And so she actually, I think, lost her job. She was sort of doing this as a side, and people took such affront to her just providing facts that she, had to step away. But she coined the term just loser behavior. And she just calls it loser behavior now, which is this decided and deliberate misunderstanding of what's happening. And I think a most recent example of that was Meghan, who, when she went to, it was the World Health Organization recently to give a speech on online bullying. And again, what we're talking about, and she talked about how she, as an adult woman who was mature, could barely survive this, almost didn't survive the bullying. So how do we expect children to? And, she gave an excellent speech. She was asked to be there, etc. And then the reporting comes out from I think it was Tom Sykes, but basically saying, she's auditioning for a political role that no one will ever give her, and just trying to find a take that is negative when there was nothing but positive for her. They're making her seem self-serving and doing this. And it's her and Kate can do the exact same thing, but the headlines for Kate will be positive. And I would lose my mind. I don't know how she sustains that level of loser behavior.
I don't know. And I honestly think that's what, I've always believed that Meg did have suicidal ideation.
Of course she did.
I would have. I would have just been there's no way out of this.
I need to get out. Yeah. There's no way out. And she didn't have family support or a good family structure either. Obviously she's got her mum, but her dad was such a drop kick as well. So she's well, where do I go?
And William's team leaked those private correspondences that she was having with her dad, which were heartbreaking. And they used that as fodder. I mean, she would have been thinking, I've ruined Harry's life. There's no point for me to be here. Everyone absolutely hates me. I'm scared probably that someone will try and murder me. It was such a horrible time. And I really don't like the discourse. We're doing it now because of how the discourse is. I want to be really clear about that. The discourse is misogynist because it focuses on the two married-ins who happen to be the women, Kate and Meghan. It's always Kate and Meghan, Kate and Meghan, Kate and Meghan. Why don't they ever criticize Will and Harry for doing all of the exact same things? Harry left too. Harry goes and gives speeches as well. Harry and Meghan get invited to other countries and he goes and gives speeches and poses for photos, and all they ever do is say, Meghan's trying to steal his spotlight. And it's if you think honestly that people cannot see exactly what you are doing by vilifying this woman of colour, it's, what do they call it? Misogynoir, because she's half black. So it's not just misogyny, it's misogynoir. It is this intersection of racism and misogyny that is disgusting. And even with people I know, around the time they left, and admittedly I was living in a regional town, I would bring up Harry and Meghan and say that I'm so proud of them for leaving and they tell the royal family to get effed. And everyone would be oh no, Meghan, she's ruined it. She's ruined the royal family, da da da. And I'm where are you parroting these talking points from? You don't know her. I don't
Jessie,
know
we're not in the majority. So I have a really good girlfriend. She's one of my best friends, and we started talking about it at a pub one night, and she's English, but we got into such an argument about it that I left crying. And both of us were hurt. And then we just went, we can't talk about this anymore. And because obviously she feels a way. I mean, she's I'm English. It's my country. I can have a view. And I was just and we are absolutely not in the majority here. And people, people I just can't put my finger on it. Why am I so annoyed by her? And it's yeah, because she's a black woman and you think she's uppity. How dare she?
Yeah, you don't want to put your finger on it. But actually, I can put my finger on it for you. We know what it is.
Yeah.
It's latent racism.
Yeah, and she's stepping above her station. How dare she?
And she did a better job than everyone. That Grenfell cookbook, the capsule collection.
The capsule collection for the work, all of it. And how she tied it into Vogue, but she made it all charity, and the way she moved it along so quickly. It's they could never.
Never. 2 years, she did more than Kate's done in 15 or 20 years, and she did such impactful things. She was there cooking with the women.
That cookbook was amazing, which is what we're struggling with, which is that, inclusivity of all, and to bring those so many different cultures together. And I mean and despite what she was going through and what she was facing. So, I mean, it is a sad state of affairs when we've had such hope about this group of people, the four of them and the things that they could do together and how it's worked out. And so actually I saw something written recently that said, I just need a standalone episode of The Crown just to cover this.
Yes.
Because it's not where anybody expected it to land.
No.
And so I guess I think a good question for us could be, where is this going? Where is it going to end? Like, what do you think?
I don't think William and Harry will ever be close again. I think eventually they will talk. If they're not talking on the phone already, I do think eventually they will talk. I think we're going to wait and see if the cousins, the kids, when they're grown up, come together, because they will have grown up in different countries and they will be curious potentially about each other. And maybe that will give us a next level of a joining ship. But I think given that Meghan and Harry's kids are Americans, essentially, I don't think that they'll ever grow up with the type of idea that they want to be involved in the British monarchy. I mean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, really, Wills and Kate's kids are being raised by Wills and Kate. So
Yeah.
I think they will feel a level of, me or them. And so should, they want to connect, I think the American kids will really have to say, like, we don't want to claim on anything, because they will certainly feel territorial, which is just, it is so sad. And it reminded me of something else too when you say, why don't we talk about the men more? But even my own dad didn't want to come to my wedding. And I was like, who's going to walk me down the aisle? But I've always said, my mum will walk me down the aisle because, she's a goddamn legend.
Yeah.
But I remember my father-in-law, who's just the sweetest man, like pulled me aside once and just said, so like, if you need anyone to walk you down the aisle, I'd be more than happy to do it for you. And I love this man so much. And when we first met, and I think I've said it before, I was just wearing like earrings from like Levisa or something, but he's like, oh, they're very ethnic. Are they Pakistani? And he was so like, he didn't know.
Salty.
Yeah, he just wanted to be like, I know you're brown and I want you to know that I support that. Like, he just wanted to do something, and he's just come on this journey, right? And he's just the most beautiful man. And like, if he's my first call if I'm doing I'm making something using the screwdriver or whatever. And so whilst he didn't walk me down the aisle, the fact that he was willing to was so beautiful. And so that when Charles did the same thing with Meghan, when he walked her halfway down, I just thought, this is a fairy tale and it's going to be happily ever after. And, to land where we are, where he doesn't know his own grandchildren, he's got cancer, the boys are estranged, the brothers are estranged, the wives are estranged, the children don't know each other. It's not the ending I wanted. But in terms of, what would that episode of The Crown look like? I don't know how it all comes back together.
No.
I really think it's all on William. And I think William has a massive ego. And he thinks his little brother is soft and does therapy and is, lets his wife get away with too many things. And the only thing I truly hope is that Meghan and Harry make it, despite how difficult it's been for them.
See, I have no doubt that they'll make it. Like, everyone's like, oh, they won't last 5 years. I'm like, have you seen them look at each other? They're so deeply in love. They're going to make it no matter what. Because also, I remember watching their Netflix documentary. So they'd done the Oprah interview, and which, upset William and Kate. And then they did the 5-part or whatever Netflix special, and I sat and watched it all. And honestly, I just remember there was a part where they were sitting in the back of a car, Meghan and Harry, and they were being followed by paparazzi, and it was extremely stressful. And Harry was very angry, fired up, and he's like, and he's sort of barking orders, and she's saying to him, "It's okay, just calm down." Da, da, da. And I remember thinking, if you got through years of that type of situation where you can't even get in a car and drive somewhere without all of this happening around you, your husband being really angry and upset, if you got through years of that, they are going to be fine, because you just wouldn't get through that if you didn't truly love him and you didn't truly love each other.
Yes, and they do truly, you can tell, just truly love and want to protect each other. And I think that was another big misunderstanding about Spare. And I think it was that matter of fact Amanda that said it, which is, people thought it was like a takedown of the palace, and it wasn't. It was him sharing the trauma of what he went through as the Spare, because it's William had his own experience of his mum dying and his father and the Camilla and the affair and the Queen and all of it. But he's like, from my perspective as the spare, this was my experience and my trauma, and this is cathartic for me to share. And they can't see it. They're just so self-involved that they're like, this is a specific takedown on us because you hate us. And it's like, you're in it, but it's not about you.
You're in it, but it's not about you. That's a really powerful thing to say. And honestly, they should be reading Spare very closely so that they can support Charlotte and Louis because they're spares.
No, that's the other thing for William. I'm like, you have 2 spares yourself. What are you doing? So, yeah, I agree. I feel as though like some people probably get to the end of this podcast conversation with us and feel quite cross because we probably do align a little too much that it's not a debate and more of an echo chamber. But, feel free to let us know what your views are and if you think we've missed anything in this chat. But I think you can tell that, it's complicated.
I would say to people, number one, remember that it is factually out there that the tabloid coverage Meghan received was inaccurate and racially motivated. That is not an echo chamber. That is proven. And I would also ask them to think about whether you love your in-laws, whether you love them but they're a lot, whether you love them from afar, whether you love them close up. Would you want your entire life to be dictated to you by your in-laws? It's a very simple question. And I think most people would genuinely say, oh God, no. Like, would you want your mother-in-law, the Queen, making decisions about your safety and your security and the amount of money you get each year and how many holidays you should take and ask permission for the things that you're doing and saying? Is that a life that any of us genuinely ask yourself that? You can say, look, no, Meghan's just not for me, and that's fine. But the
answer is no. And like, I love my mother-in-law. Like, I love her. And she worked at the NAB, which is the National Australia Bank, her whole life. And she always helped Sean with finances. And when we got together and I was like, Sean, get her off your accounts, because she'd always just been on there because she'd always helped manage it because he's totally useless. Like, his mail still goes to their house half the time. So she was just being, but I was like, no. And I was like, you're off the accounts, and it was like, even though it was just, something that had always happened, but I was like, I love that lady, and she was helping us, and she was giving us financial advice that we deeply needed, but I was still like, absolutely not.
Still a no.
Still a no.
Level of privacy between a couple that you actually need to function correctly. And same thing, like, my mother-in-law's beautiful. She's beyond generous. But no, you can't have that because you actually have to be independent of your parents and your in-laws to make your little family function correctly. And then that allows you to then enjoy all the beautiful times together. But
exactly.
If my older brother was, from Charlie's perspective, like, I
know.
For the people that get cross, and if you pop something on our Instagram, like, we're more than happy to have this discussion. We obviously are not going to allow any racism, misogyny, any bullshit about Meghan in terms of her blackness or her American identity. That's not okay. I don't care if that makes me an echo chamber. It's our page.
Oh God, no. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, and I don't think we are an echo chamber. I'm sitting here as a person with a letter from Kate and Wills. I'm telling you, I came into this unbiased. I wanted it to work.
They wanted to be at your wedding. Kate and Wills carefully considered every possibility to make it to your wedding.
Yeah, we're basically best friends, right? So we can, but we still need to be able to have an intelligent conversation.
Should we invite Harry and Meghan to like a joint 50th for us? Or like, what's the next invite going to be?
Oh my God. No, we need to manifest that. We will have her as like a guest at a live podcast one day.
Oh, totally. She's such a beautiful dresser though. She'll have to also get us like some designer.
No, we'll get her in the rick rack. Look at this.
Just put her in the rick rack. Or we can be like, hey, we do want your fashion contacts, Meghan. I know you didn't need Kate's, but we do need yours.
Exactly. And I mean, to this day, Kate is still replicating Meghan's best outfits that Meghan was.
She is. Like, I mean, I'm not having a go at Kate. She's been unwell. I think she's been dealt a pretty tough stick in lots of ways. But she's also disappeared to nothing through
I think probably sadness. Like, I think the whole thing's just eaten away at her.
What is going on with Kate? I mean, that woman
Has disappeared.
She's
disappeared in every possible way.
Yeah.
All her personality is gone. She's tiny.
I know, and we're not encouraging body shaming here. I want to be really clear. But when you see photos of her, it is scary to me.
Yeah, she looks emaciated. And I think I said it to you the other day. I'm like, am I confused? Because she just climbed the 3 tallest mountains in England. So I'm like, is that just an athlete's body? But I don't know. It feels symbolic that it's like every part of her has been eaten away.
I think what we can safely say is that being a woman in the royal family is exceedingly difficult. And whether you're Diana or Kate or Meghan, they need to change the way they treat their women that marry into those families. 100%.
You've nailed it. Yeah.
To wrap up, congratulations to Meghan Markle on her Emmy nomination for With Love, Meghan.
Yes, who also inspired me, as you know, as a visitor of mine. I now do handwritten notes, and look, I might do a Twix bar instead of a homemade bath salts, but I was inspired by Meghan.
And as a recipient of those gifts when I arrived, stayed as a guest at your house, I can tell you it is lovely, and don't stop doing it. I loved it. Well, Sophie, thank you for this lovely discussion. It'll be so fun to see what people think. And remember, people, you can disagree, but be kind in the comments.
Yes, disagree respectfully. That's our thing. Well, thank you, Jessie. I'm so excited we got to do this side dish, and I can't wait to do another one.
I know. All right, Sophie, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Love you.
This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Yagara, Turrbal and Lutruwita peoples. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present.